Coming over the third ridge out of DeHaven Creek on that old bear shit trail, lugging 78 pounds on my sore shoulder, misery whip for a headband, chewing abalone black like wild tobacco, headstrong. Spying into my own back window like the cracked ice on Kinnan's horse trough shows me nothing. Peeking in the compost is dyspeptic, reveals truth. I scratch at the ground, drink dew, eat a bug. The last war didn't kill me, but I'll never be the same. I won't lie on wet silt to kiss my own lips distorted and do a push-up silent with rifle clutched, listening to a rolling salmon where waters enter waters and timber stands crossed. Born waiting for the bomb to fall and to be electrified, I sat crouched over an AM radio, listening to the Farm Bureau crop report as the sheet rose and rain plastered me like so much birdshot. The night of the 40-footers when we broke bottles on the wind. Dear diary, whenever I resist, they stick me in the guts. But I made $1 million yarding sinkers, blue as veins, out of the sandbar under Johnson's flat, only to see it commandeered for use against foreign enemies. I come along at the edge of town, looming in the fog like a boom on a loose line, swinging a bucket, heavy, wet boots, lost in rain and huckleberries, looking each way, alert, a bit of a coot. By turning around, I disappear.
Yeah.
I just can't get over people being in the seats. Sorcery, this is another true thing. Yetner's white slaughterhouse ramped to the sky about a mile out of town, as I recall, and the strung-out guts linked like cantaloupe seeds. When Evelyn paused to allow Yetner's grandchildren off bus 12, a four-pointer rose from the grass like a myth, stilting on hard pegs, sharp steps on the road, arcing aloft. Sorcery.
Yeah, right.
Now, near Fort Bragg, there was a little place, it's a bluff now, but it was a town way back in until the 1930s. Then it was demolished, and nothing remains of it except a little outhouse that was attached to the schoolhouse. So I looked at that, and it would inspire this poem. Gazing at the ivory sea, roof lifted by weather, on a cliff, 3 holes, out front the schoolhouse. What thoughts those ancient students had atop the boards, pondering mathematics in the face of eternity. Because it faced the ocean. It was the most beautiful place you could imagine, an outhouse. It had to be inspiring, I would think. Almost a scholar.
All right.
Okay, I'll do one more, a newer poem, which is, it doesn't make any sense. It's not a narrative thread. It's images, impressions of the coast, called Love Sequence. Wind is constant at Cape Mendocino. They can't stand to look up. We're 2 hours early in Ferndale, pretending not to care about the tide. Up Wildcat, rusted logging tackle swings in a tree. Gusts and sustained winds. Down the grade the cows with heads lowered like rudders. They seem quite still, but move. By the time the road elbows the bright afternoon sun. Coming into Shelter Cove, it rained so hard the cows were sailing north like butterflies, and for some reason I pulled over, put my tongue on a raw limpet, salt, rubber. A container vessel making good time. Somewhere out there the land bends, and there are only simple waves everywhere, referring mainly to the named and paved roads where people make up their minds and die. We were in a coffee shop reading books. We were on the edge of the west, looking down, the sea rolling backward into sun. Coming into Bear Harbor on foot with a canteen, banging down the trail at night with a red jug.
All right.
Yeah, all that really happened. Oh, okay. One last story. This is like an autobiography. This is my autobiography. This is a story it really happened. It's a sad event that happened, and I sort of feel like I was responsible, but I didn't actually cause it to happen, but I was obviously involved. So it's called the omission. But I think it stood for larger things and made me stop and think about my role in life and so on. I once found a brown dog weeks after his lonesome howling and preoccupation with a bitch I had locked indoors ended in a clumsy fall. I consider that he must have sung his ultimate note for days, sadly inaudible, winter daylight escaping like air overhead, out gradually. Isolation and hunger. On hind legs he could stand almost high enough. Pressed him down. Obsessed, he starved, oblivious, digging deeper. When I came along, the rough work of decay had softened him. Stamped earth, cluttered bones, tight, lively weave of pale roots. Rather than dig his lost carcass, there was that faded paper on a pole. I kicked more earth down, feeling it sifting on my own skin. I carefully avoided stepping in beside the queasy rug of brown fur.
Crawdad.
Yeah, and then I moved to Sacramento. This one was requested this morning, so I'm going to, especially from my wife. She said, moonshine. There are only so many stars, many of them owned already, and just a little light that can really be called yours out of all that pours through heaven. Always hard to be alive, I mean hard. And when the old folks lean under the moon to take a drink, they can never get enough of that moonshine passing through carved hands.
Nice. Real nice.
At the Step Brothers Memorial, this really happened. Nothing bad. Suspicious looks over the pickled salmon. Bottle to the throttle, drinks to the rigging slinger, to the hook tender, throttle to heaven. Flying leads, whistles, able to catapult 800-pound barrel swivel out of sight, logging with gas. The old boy bent over in the corner, hearing aid turned up, plucking at thunder. Okay, that was nice. That's my old life in Fort Bragg, the loggers. They're heroic figures, and I loved hanging out with them. But that was one thing I was not cut out to do: cut timber for a living. It's dangerous work. But everybody I knew did it, and they loved it. It was like sex. I have a little story here. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not going to read the story where I talk about that because I don't think I should. But I'm going to finish up here. with my famous drunk poem. Sometimes, if I really seriously stop and think over whether it's a good idea for me to read the drunk poem, I wouldn't do it. And, that's what happens when you start editing. I edit the shit out of my poems. I even get them in published form. They'll show up in an anthology. And I'll read it and say, I wish I had not written that. And then I'll edit it, and then the next thing that I have that's that same poem, whatever, people don't like it, and you have to expose and be wounded and all this. And I hate to do that, so this drunk poem still, because I haven't edited it, it's still got that exposure and wounded stuff. But, all right. It's so funny to see people. But we definitely appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Okay.
We're going to ask you to read that poem. You're not going to read.
It's not a poem. Sorry.
Oh, it's like a prose?
Yeah, I didn't come to read the prose.
I think the audience would love the prose.
You can read the prose. We had a discussion about that earlier, and that's okay. It's okay to read the
You got time?
I'm just saying,
Prose poem. It's a prose poem.
If you still,
we may need it after the drug poem.
if you need an antidote or whatever, if you're not completely disgusted with get drunk, we'll talk about that. Drunk. I was drunk. Drunk as a lord. Drunk as 2 fins and a box of wine. Drunk as a Russian mystic. Drunk as a Trotskyite. Drunk as a fugitive Eskimo in the Humboldt County Jail. Drunk as a green chain puller on payday in the bowling alley 15 minutes after the whistle. Drunk. Wobbling drunk, crazy, shitty, loose pants, puke on my shoes, lighting another cigarette with one burning in my other hand, making hots with that crazy dingbat credit card with fake titties and a red Mercedes convertible. Drunk. Wine drunk. Whiskey drunk. Desperately sitting around listening to miserable 2-step rhyming poetry. Drunk. Beatnik drunk. Anarchist drunk. Revolutionary, counter-revolutionary. Message of the day. Drunk. Powerful. Change the way you look at things. Drunk. So drunk. I would have happily fucked anything that sat still, but even then, not that dizzy, jabbering skeletons in the closet, pug, dog, woman of 1,000 backgrounds. Drunk. Drunk, but not that drunk. That's what... I was drunk. Drunk enough to get a job writing up little blurbs about how things are and wondering how they would make it through editing, what priceless headline, what caption, what graphic, what page, after all, it would end up on, whether it would be read, whether it would matter. I got drunk with the reporters down at Whiskey Dick's. As ever, I ended up sentimental